So guys, let's go to the In the Gym segment, and we're going to head to the gym with Jon and Marty, and we're going to talk about strength and sensitivity, maximizing muscle growth through nutrient partitioning, and we're going to continue the conversation that we had with Jory here, and really going to lean into, and what I'm hoping we're going to really lean into is Jon's experience with this, is how resistance training has affected insulin sensitivity. It's one thing just to go into the gym and lift weights, but it's talking about how you're eating the food, what kind of lifting you're doing, and how specific workouts combined with different timing can optimize muscle growth and fat loss. So truthfully, we're going to set this up. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to talk about resistance training, insulin sensitivity, optimizing workouts for muscle growth and fat loss, and then some practical tips along the way. Johnny, I hope you can lead this for us here, this conversation around nutrient partitioning and the lifts that we're doing to make us grow and so forth. Jon, Marty, let's get into the gym, and we're going to come back and wrap up the show in about 12 minutes or so. Okay, guys? Not wrap the show. We're going to wrap up this segment and go to we're going to get to the second half of the hour.
That's all right. There's brain farts are part of our lives. Don't worry about it, brother.
Let me just get me out of
here. Own it, baby.
All right.
All right. So I think one of the things that might help our listeners to understand is we know that insulin is really powerful, and let's put it into a different framework, because right now we think of insulin about recovering from the gym, but realistically what insulin is, it's this transport hormone that's designed to get us back to recovered as quickly as possible. Going back to when life was a really difficult place to survive, if you had to run from a saber-toothed tiger, by the time you finally outran him, if you were alive, you were zapped, and those muscles were beat up. And keep in mind, there wasn't a lot of nutrients at that time. And so it wasn't like we had all we had right now. So when you finally did outrun that saber-toothed tiger, whatever it was that you had to fight for your life, whatever it was, your body had a response. Okay, I need to heal quickly because I might have to do this shit again tomorrow. And that's how we survived. The body was designed to survive. So in that setting, insulin comes along and says, okay, basically whatever he eats, I'm going to put it in the right spot so we can get these muscles healed quickly. And obviously, when we didn't have enough to eat, insulin wasn't a huge issue. It didn't create this issue of getting fat because you couldn't take in enough calories to get fat from it. Now we fast forward into today's times, it still has the same exact function. It helps us heal really fast. But the problem is our workouts don't resemble running for our lives or fighting for our lives. And we've got this abundance of food, and so much of it has very little nutrient value. So now we can see where the problems lie. It's designed to help us recover and rebuild very quickly. But in the wrong setting, with the wrong foods, it can really backfire. So here's the thing. It doesn't take as much insulin as people think to do the job. So when you got these guys that are like, I'm going to finish this. I did this really nasty chest workout, which is a little muscle, for Christ's sake. There's not a whole lot of room. That holding tank is not that big. And then people are knocking down a bunch of candy and a bunch of shit like this. Number one, they cranked up the insulin really high. And the insulin, basically, now the body is shuttling calories, because there's not a lot of nutrients in the candy they're eating, into the bloodstream and into that broken down muscle to try to heal it. That once that muscle has got all it can hold, boom, now it's going into the fat cell. So if you repeat this process a few times a week, even 2-3 times a week, you're going to get fat quickly. Now, let's talk about if you were to just trigger the insulin just enough. So let's just say that you use some sort of a simple sugar, maybe some fruit juice, some sort of, there are actually studies that say that, fructose in, I'm having a brain fart on the other one. Anyway, you can have a combination of two, it's a drink. It'll pop that insulin, and then you eat good nutrient food. That's really the process we're looking for. But the key is not to punch the insulin too hard and not to overeat. So it's a slippery slope. And here's the thing. If you're not some sort of a high level competitor trying to really do something great, it's not going to serve you. If you're in the gym just to get in shape, this is something that's so tricky. And even at the highest level in pro bodybuilding, people misunderstand it and they end up getting fat. And it's really easy to happen. So I guess what I would recommend, we've talked about this before, is when you train, just use that window post-training, because when the muscles are broken down, the body is, when you eat, even if you're just eating some sort of a complex carb, the body is going to trigger some insulin because it wants to heal. And if you're using something that's nutrient dense, that's not a real fast, if you're not eating candy, if you're eating a complex carb and some good sorts of types of proteins, easy digestible proteins, you're going to get what you want without getting fat, probably. It's just, this is you eat too much at any point, especially when the insulin level's high, you're going to get fat. So now the question, Mark, did that make sense to you? Is if it makes sense to you that, yeah, I was going to break it down, and let's keep breaking this down so it's easy for people to understand.
I want to give some tangible things. When we talk about triggering insulin, we got to touch on some tangible things. So the first thing, you got to change your mindset towards, hold on, before that. If your issue is eating terribly, you have bad habits, the last thing you need to be doing is trying to find a way to eat candy after your workouts. That's number one right there.
Yes.
And one is Rice Krispie treats, gummy bears, all of this stuff. Get that crap out of there. So that's number one. Number two, you got to change your mindset towards food, right? So we talked about it earlier with Jory, right? Eating for a purpose and not pleasure. Right. So that you keep trying to look for ways to pleasure yourself. How can I get this to taste good? How can I get away with enjoying my favorite candy bar or my favorite snack? You got to get that out the window and change your mindset. And then as far as workouts, we're not asking you to be Olympians and kill yourself or work yourself like you're running from a saber-toothed tiger, but you do have to go in there and challenge yourself too. If we're going to talk about triggering insulin sensitivity, I think we need to dive into what type of workout should you be doing. So we got resistance training, right? And you do need to train for some hypertrophy, and you do need to train for some muscle endurance. You need to mix it up. What other type of training do they need to do, John?
I think that going back to that example of the muscle being a holding tank, when you burn that muscle out, when that muscle's burned out, that tank is empty. So there's some space for you to basically shuttle nutrients in there quickly. And so resistance training is going to target the muscles. It's going to break down the muscles. If you're an endurance athlete, you obviously it's going to burn the bloodstream first, then it's going to go into the liver. So it's a different style of training. And you keep in mind, insulin has its place for every type of athlete, but it has a different place for every type of athlete. For the most part, realistically, for the general person who's trying to get in shape, probably the best thing you could do is forget about how to try to trigger your insulin to help. For the most part, it's so complex. It's so fucking slippery. You're better off to just eat right, train, make sure you eat some good nutrients after your workout, eat good food. Your insulin is going to trigger and it's going to do its job. As long as you don't overeat, you're getting the benefit from it, and you're not wasting all this time and energy trying to figure out how to do it. The body does it by itself. It's when we start doing this dumb shit like eating candy, trying to make it trigger harder, that we fuck shit up. And that's another thing too. The people become diabetic from triggering eating too much sugar. So if you're constantly doing this to trigger insulin, think of it like this.
Exactly.
Your insulin like a light switch, right? It's boom, you're turning it on and off. And it was only, let's just say, just for the sake of this discussion, it was only designed to have 100,000 on-offs before it breaks. If you're triggering this shit all the time, you're going to burn through that number of clicks and it's going to break. Now, guess what? You're a fucking diabetic. So we weren't designed as human beings during a time where we even had the possibility to trigger our insulin that much. So it was very easy for us not to become diabetic because we didn't have the resources to flip that switch over and over. An average American is probably flipping that switch multiple times per day. And when I say multiple, every time you eat something that's processed with a bunch of sugar, boom, you're popping that son of a bitch. Guess what? That's another one of your clicks. And pretty soon you're going to use up all your clicks. That switch is going to break. Now you're not. That's why it's the average food in North America has become so rich in sugar. That's why we have this massive epidemic of diabetes, because especially the way the kids are eating now, they're flipping that switch all day long. Next thing they're 15, 16, 17, and the switch is fucking broken. Guess what? You just signed up for a lifelong problem, all because you didn't understand how the whole thing works. So forget about that. My recommendation is forget about this shit. Just train, eat properly after your workout, and it's going to happen the way it should happen.
In many ways, John, as you, Marty, have been talking about this and I've been listening in on it, it reminds our listeners to continue to choose those single ingredient foods. Yes, it's easy to go into the GNC. Yes, it's easy to go and buy the protein bar. Yes, it's easy to go buy the quick fix foods along the way. And I know this is cliche and obvious, but I'm going to state it anyways. That's what's causing the problems, isn't it? You're going to the health food store, you're buying those packaged foods, and it's killing you.
And it's not even the health food store, it's the fucking grocery store. Everything we eat is filled with sugar. The sugar content is fucking sky high. Here's the thing. In crackers, for Christ's sake, there's sugar in crackers. You just can't taste it because they put the salt in there, which then offsets the sugar, but it has this really rich flavor that you can't wait to have another one. Guess what? Most processed foods are messing with your insulin. And I guess the simplest way to do it, like you said, Keith, if you go to single ingredient foods, that's going to eliminate almost all of the problems that we're talking about. Not to mention what we're talking about here. You'll feel better. You'll sleep better. If you're fat, you'll start losing body fat. You won't even know why. It's like the processed foods that are so sugar heavy is the root of all this issue.
I want to add this in too. So those of you that are listening to this, understand that you're going to see marketing for, hey, try this plan. You can eat whatever you want. Right.
Yeah,
try this.
bullshit.
You don't have to stop the pizza. You don't have to stop the crackers. You don't have to stop the sweets. So understand everything we're talking about, that people are going to tell you these things to try to get your money, because folks are always going to look for a shortcut. So keep that in mind, and just know that switching to single ingredient foods and doing things the right way, the scientific proven way, is always going to be superior to these ways, these new trends. And hey, try my 60-day program where you can do whatever the fuck you want. That's not going to work. So just want to throw that in there too.
Yeah.
And
Nation, as we come up towards November, as we're approaching No Month, the month where we're encouraging to make more decisions that point in the direction of no, so you can work towards making some decisions that help you towards your big goals, which move towards a yes. Maybe one of those decisions you want to consider is cutting sugar out of your diet, cutting sugar out of your daily food habits, cutting sugar. And maybe I'm going to make some suggestions and recommendations, Nation. You can make the decision, but maybe sitting back going, okay, it's November, but it's No Month. Maybe I'm not going to eat sugar this week, or I'm going to go make some better decisions. And then, as Jon and Marty said, see how you feel about yourself. See how you feel when you look in the mirror, when you start making decisions without sugar involved. And I'll tell you, I've done it. I've created that awareness from, I'm not going to eat sugar. And when you focus on eating the healthy sugars that are in your single ingredient foods and not processed sugars, man, you feel great, you look great, and magic happens, as I like to say.
But it's not fun, Keith.
No, exactly, Marty. It's not fun. And it's not fun, Nation. However, it is fun when you sit back and think about it, because what's fun is knowing you're going to live to 80, 90, go hiking with your kids, walking with your kids, eating whole ingredient forever.
We got to define fun here. We got to define fun.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, because people that think eating how they want to is fun, they don't know how bad they feel, because they've never felt good. Once you feel good,
on the other side.
That's not fun anymore.
Johnny, I'm going to talk about it. So I'll be the guy listening right now. So this was fun to me, eating these things. I'm not going to lie. I love peanut butter and chocolate. As a matter of fact, October 31st comes National Peanut Butter and Chocolate Day. I love this. I fucking love it. It's fun to me. But you know what I hate more than the fun that's enjoying this? I hate how I feel when it's done. I hate how I feel the next day. That's not fun.
Well, brother, it's like a cocaine user saying cocaine is fun.
Exactly, Johnny. But I bring it up.
True.
I bring it up to relate to our audience, because we know there's guys, Jon and Marty, that listen to this. Right? Yeah, but Keith, I eat my chocolate bar. Guys, so do I. But I've been around the planet long enough to know that's why this thing is still sealed. It's still sealed, because I've learned long enough in my lifetime that fun is short-lived. That fun, I can crush this in probably less than 5 minutes.
Check this out. Let's take it one step further with this. This is factual. This is not my opinion. I believe this, but now that it's proven, I was living it. So sugar is an addiction, like full-blown addiction.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And this is how bad it is. So literally, when a person that's addicted to sugar has this idea of eating, like they think, oh, I'm going to eat that big peanut butter cup.
Yeah.
Their brain releases some shit into their bloodstream that makes it okay, no matter what someone says. Now, the comparison is this. That heroin addict that's fucking jonesing, right? When he hears a knock on the door from his dealer, boom, that same thing happens. And there is nothing that anybody is going to say to make that guy not shoot up.
Dangerous.
There's nothing that anybody's going to say that's going to stop a person from eating that big fucking peanut butter cup, because they've proven that the addiction center of the brain doesn't understand the difference between heroin or fucking sugar.
Yeah. So I bring it up, Nation, because I've been there, and I know Johnny's been there, and Marty's been there.
Yep.
I've been there. So, and as we continue to build this show, I keep this thing taped up on my desk to remind myself about how good it makes me feel, but how good it actually doesn't make me feel. How it makes me feel horrible, how it beats my brain up, how it makes me feel just like a piece of shit. And in funny ways, guys, I keep this on my desk almost in a sadomasochistic way to remind myself about how it doesn't make me feel good, Johnny. So anyways, guys, great conversation today. Wonderful conversation.